A massive supreme orc stepped through the gate. Its towering frame was covered in thick green skin, and its glowing red eyes radiated pure malice. Despite their lack of intelligence, these predators possessed instincts sharper than any human hunter. Their hunting techniques had been honed over countless battles, making them the apex predators of their world. The stench of fresh blood filled the air, heightening their primal urges, but they held back. For now, they were here as scouts, and their mission was far more important than their thirst for slaughter. One of the orcs sniffed the air and spoke in a deep, guttural voice. "The hunt begins. Call the others." The supreme orc turned its gaze toward the structure above the school building, loomed over them like a fortress. "Once we clear out the humans, we will take this stronghold for ourselves." The orc stepped into the corridor. At the end of the hallway, a group of students stood huddled together, oblivious to the nightmare approaching. The students turned, confusion quickly twisting into terror, but before they could react, the orc lunged forward, tearing into the nearest student. Meanwhile, at the dungeon site, Jin Wu stood before the towering dungeon gate, thinking. It was far larger in person than it had appeared in the video footage. To the right, the collection team was preparing. To the left, the extraction team stood ready. Among the attackers, there were 13 A-rank hunters and 20 B-rank hunters, a considerable force. It made sense. This guild boasted the highest number of A-rank hunters in the country. Suddenly, Jin Wu heard a voice behind him. Turning around, he found himself surrounded by a crowd of hunters. That Jeju Island raid was incredible. Those dark warriors, was it summoning magic? How did you even do it? The flood of questions came all at once, making it impossible for Jin Wu to answer. Then, a female hunter stepped forward. "All right, enough. Give him some space." She turned to Jin Wu and flashed a confident smile. "I'm Jong Ye-rim, head of the healers from the Knights Guild's elite attack squad." She folded her arms, tilting her head slightly. "We're both responsible people, don't you think? Shouldn't we get along?" Jin Wu didn't reply. Instead, he turned his attention to the hunter he had spoken to in his office earlier. "There's something you haven't told me yet," he said. The guild leader cleared his throat and stepped forward. "All right, listen up. This raid will be led by me." The gathered hunters groaned in frustration. "Again? But we have Hunter Jin Wu. Why isn't he leading us?" The guild leader raised a hand to calm them. "Jin Wu will be backing us up. He'll ensure our safety." Some hunters scoffed. "You think we're so weak that we need protection? Is that what you think of our Knights Guild?" Jin Wu's eyes narrowed. Before he could respond, the leader chuckled. "Our members are quite gutsy. It might have been a bit rude, but we usually have this kind of atmosphere," he said casually. Jin Wu smirked. "It just means that they're that confident." With that, the time had come. The guild leader signaled the team to move out, and the raid officially began. At that same moment, the Hunters Association received a frantic phone call. A young female dispatcher answered. "This is the Public Emergency Communication Center. What's your emergency?" The voice on the other end trembled with fear. "Please, monsters! They're in our school! A dungeon! It's open!" The dispatcher stiffened. "Stay calm. Where are you right now?" "I'm hiding. In the restroom," the girl whispered. "My friend. He's already dead." The dispatcher clenched her fists. "How many monsters have you seen?" She replied, "I don't know. I can hear screaming everywhere." A loud crash echoed through the phone. "Please, help me. I think I'm going to die." The dispatcher took a deep breath. "Listen to me. Help is coming. The hunters are already on their way. You just need to hold on a little longer." The girl's breathing steadied slightly. "Oh, okay. Can you tell me what kind of monsters they are?" The student hesitated. They look human-like, but their faces are terrifying." A memory clicked. "Their skin is green," She also remembered that they were called Orcs on TV, but at this time this Orc with a big grey had already entered the restroom and was heading towards the student who was hiding. Suddenly there was a very loud scream through the tube and the connection was cut off. However, the dispatcher kept yelling for her to get out of there as soon as possible because they could smell blood. The last thing she heard was the girl screaming for help. The only sound left was the thud of a phone hitting the floor. Outside the school, terrified students fled the building. Blood painted the walls, a gruesome reminder of the horror inside. One girl stopped abruptly, turning to her friend. "We have to go back! My friend is still in there!" Her friend grabbed her wrist. "The hunters will take care of it. We need to run." A group of students managed to escape, but an orc watched them from a distance. The creature sneered. "Let them run. We still have plenty more to hunt." Inside the school, a group of desperate students barricaded a classroom door. Armed with nothing but chairs and mops, they stood ready. A loud crash shattered their fragile confidence. The barricaded doors exploded apart, and a hulking orc covered in blood stepped inside. One student tried to flee, but an orc behind the wall swung its massive axe, smashing through the wall and obliterating the student behind it. "Find the one with magic," one of the orcs growled. "Kill her first, before she causes trouble." Seeing the orcs, Jin Woo's sister trembled, her eyes shut and her lips sealed in silence, forming a single, silent plea.
"Brother, please save me."
Fear and uncertainty hung thick in the air. Summoning courage, Han Songi stepped forward, her fists clenched tightly at her sides. I'm a hunter," she declared, though her voice wavered slightly, and her powers were limited. But she couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Jin Woo's sister, sensing the danger, quickly grabbed the girl's arm and whispered urgently,
Don't do it."
Her heart pounded in her chest as she assessed the orcs standing in front of them. The orcs scanned the group with their piercing eyes, their expressions shifting as they sensed something unusual. One of them let out a low growl, its voice heavy with realization. "It's not her," it muttered. Their gaze shifted, locking onto the girl standing next to her. The strong magic. It's coming from her. A chilling realization dawned upon them. Their eyes widened in recognition. She's the one! Without hesitation, one of the massive orcs lifted its brutal axe high into the air, ready to bring it down in a devastating swing that would end her life in an instant. The girls squeezed their eyes shut, bracing themselves for the inevitable. But nothing happened. Instead, a thunderous crash echoed through the room. When they opened their eyes, they saw a figure standing between them and the orc. But this was no ordinary figure. It was different, dark, powerful, and radiating an overwhelming aura. A shadow soldier. Their shock deepened as they recognized the creature. It was their brother's protection. The shadow orc growled menacingly before gripping the enemy's arm and lifting it with effortless strength. With a single bone-shattering punch, it sent the green-skinned orc flying across the room, smashing through the wall and disappearing from sight. The remaining orc froze in place, its body trembling with disbelief. It struggled to comprehend what it was witnessing. Three of my kin, protecting humans. It was a sight it could not fathom. Meanwhile, deep inside the dungeon, Jin Wu stood at the center of a battlefield, surrounded by elite hunters. The tension in the air was palpable, and every hunter remained on high alert. Suddenly, a monstrous roar shook the dungeon. "A two-headed ogre!" someone shouted as the massive creature emerged from the darkness, its fiery eyes filled with unrelenting fury. "Focus!" the raid leader barked. "This thing is dangerous!" The ogre wasted no time, swinging its gigantic axe toward the hunters. One of them stepped forward, activating his defensive skill just in time. A shimmering barrier formed in front of him. Boom! The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the ground, causing cracks to splinter across the stone floor. Seizing the moment, another hunter leapt onto the ogre's axe, dashing along its massive handle before delivering a precise strike to one of the beast's eyes. "Now! It's blind!" Taking advantage of the opening, the hunters sliced the hands, and the mages unleashed a barrage of spells. Lightning crackled, flames roared, and explosions filled the air as magic rained down upon the ogre. It howled in agony before finally collapsing to the ground. The hunters barely had time to catch their breath, but the raid leader's expression remained tense. This raid won't be easy, he muttered. Jin Wu stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed the dungeon. This is a graveyard, he stated ominously. The leader's face paled. A two-headed ogre at the entrance? That can only mean one thing. The undead dwell here, Jin Wu finished. As soon as the words left his lips, a chilling presence filled the air. From the darkness, figures emerged, undead creatures, their hollow eyes fixed upon the hunters. The tension in the room spiked, weapons raised in anticipation of battle. But something was off. They're not attacking, a hunter murmured in confusion. The undead remained still for a moment. Then, without warning, they turned and fled. Why are they running? Confusion spread among the group. Jin Wu, however, felt something deep within him. His instincts screamed a warning. Something was terribly wrong. His expression darkened. I need to leave. Now. The raid leader spun around in shock. What? Without you? We will die. Jin Wu met his gaze with an unwavering stare. I'll leave someone you can trust just as much as me. A dark aura erupted around him as he extended his hand. In an instant, his most powerful summon materialized. Gasps filled the air. That's the ant from Jeju Island. Jin Wu turned to Beru, his trusted general. Protect them, he ordered. Beru's eyes gleamed with excitement. He asked eagerly,
What shall I do about the others?
Jin Wu nodded. Do as you please. A roar of exhilaration escaped Beru's lips, his joy barely contained. Without hesitation, Jin Wu summoned 20 more ant soldiers. The team leader and the healer exchanged wary glances before voicing their concern. You're just going to leave? After setting them loose? Jin Wu's gaze turned cold. If you want, I can call them back, he said. But I don't think that would help you. Silence fell over the group. They understood. Jin Wu quickly checked his skill cooldown. 1 hour and 42 minutes left. His heart pounded. Why now, of all times? Without wasting another second, he sprinted toward the exit, only to be met with a massive army of undead blocking his path. Move, he commanded. In an instant, every undead creature dropped to their knees, bowing before him. Jin Wu froze for a brief moment, confused, but there was no time to question it. Summoning Kaisel, his shadow dragon, he wasted no time. The moment Kaisel appeared, Jin Wu leapt onto its back. The dragon spread its wings wide, soaring through the dungeon's exit and into the open sky. The very heavens trembled as he took flight. With burning determination in his eyes, Jin Wu issued a single command. Take me to my sister, as fast as you can. He activated the domain of the monarch's skill to increase speed, boosting all his shadow soldiers' stats by 50%. Below, the people could only watch in awe. As he raced through the skies, the battlefield was drenched in chaos. Jin Wu's elite warriors, the Shadow Orcs, moved with terrifying precision, tearing through the invading green-skinned Orcs. Fangs clashed, swords met flesh, and blood soaked the ground. The green Orcs had believed their brute strength would overwhelm their enemies, but they had underestimated their foes. Among the stunned onlookers, the children huddled together, watching in awe and fear. These weren't just ordinary monsters. They were something else entirely. Clad in black armor, radiating a dark and overwhelming presence, the Shadow Orcs stood between the terrified students and certain death. And at the heart of it all, Jin Wu's sister clung to the cloak of one of these towering protectors.
Is brother here?
She asked, her voice trembling yet filled with hope. The Shadow Orc did not speak, but instead raised a thumb toward the window, signaling that more Orcs would soon arrive. At that very moment, deep within the Orc stronghold, a massive figure stirred upon his throne. A deep, rumbling voice echoed through the chamber. The final restriction has been lifted. One of his servants kneeled before him in submission. The figure rose from his seat, his muscular frame adorned with scars from countless battles. "I am Groktaru, chief of the Red Blade tribe," he declared, his voice dripping with ruthless authority. Another orc hesitated before stepping forward. "My lord, a group of high orcs are helping humans." Groktaru's eyes burned with rage. "What?" His fury ignited instantly. "The warriors from the strongest clan, acting like weaklings." He gripped his massive sword, his expression twisting into a snarl. The ground seemed to tremble beneath his heavy footsteps as he marched forward. "Lead the way," he ordered. "It's time to slaughter them all." Meanwhile, in the depths of the dungeon, another battle raged on. The shadow ants clashed against an unending horde of undead, tearing through them with unparalleled savagery. The hunters stood frozen, caught between admiration and fear as they watched the dark creatures fight. Some hesitated. Should we leave? What if they turn on us? The raid leader shook his head. "Number, we can't stop now. The world is watching. The reporters won't let us walk away from this." Even as they debated, a chilling presence made itself known. Baru had arrived. The giant shadow ant materialized beside them, its sheer aura sending shivers down their spines. The leader flinched, instinctively turning to speak. But in a flash, Baru vanished. A second later, he reappeared at the same spot, moving faster than their eyes could track. With a flick of his claw, he tossed something onto the ground at the leader's feet. His comrades rushed to his side. "Are you okay? What should we do? Follow them or stay here?" The leader, who had collapsed onto the ground in shock, hesitated before glancing down. When he saw what lay before him, his breath hitched. A head. The severed head of the Death Knight, a top-tier undead monster. They were stunned. That ant had slain a high-ranking undead with a single strike. Realization dawned. If the dungeon was filled with powerful undead, then the loot from this battle. The leader smirked. "Do you know how much top-tier crystals are worth?" They couldn't leave yet. As if sharing the same thought, the other hunters turned toward the ants. Greed flickered in their eyes. But another war was brewing elsewhere. Groktaru arrived at the battlefield, his elite warriors behind him. "Groktaru! Groktaru!" His orcs roared his name, their voices shaking the walls. Groktaru smirked. He pointed his muscled arm, showcasing his tattooed skin. "These marks? They are my victories, each one a life taken." His eyes gleamed as he examined his opponents. The shadow orcs had many kills as well. Interesting. But that's all you're capable of. He raised his massive sword, its edge dripping with past conquests. He swung. A shadow orc blocked his strike. Groktaru snarled and pressed harder until his blade sliced clean through. "Ha! You're nothing. Come on, keep me entertained." Then the shadow orc regenerated. Groktaru froze. No matter how many times he cut them down, they came back. His mind screamed, This isn't natural. It's magic." A sinister voice whispered in his head. "Kill the humans." The voice grew louder. "Kill them. Kill them all." His rage boiled. He realized the truth. The caster. It's that girl. His eyes locked onto Jin Woo's sister. Capture her. If she falls, these things will stop regenerating. The remaining orcs surged forward. The last shadow orc grabbed two of them, leaving Jin Woo's sister unguarded. Groktaru, shrouded in darkness, grabbed her by the head. "I knew it was you. I could feel your magic." He tightened his grip. The orc's breath hitched. His eyes darted to the sky. "What is this feeling?" A wave of pure terror crashed into him. His hands shook uncontrollably. Let go of Jin Woo's sister, and she fell to the ground. Her friend ran up to her and started asking if she was all right. But the orc, who was watching with his gut, felt something approaching him. Something terrible, and it made him shake with fear. And suddenly, the leader of the orcs, Groktaru, began to tell his servants to get down as soon as possible, and at that moment, the wall exploded. A figure soared through the dust, landing between the orcs and the humans. The students coughed, struggling to see, but as the dust settled, Jin Wu had arrived. He placed a hand on his sister's head. "You're safe now." The orcs backed away. Groktaru saw a large dragon in front of him and a strange hunter with a terrifying power coming from him. His body tensed. He took a step forward, gripping his sword. "I am Groktaru, leader of the Red Blood." Jin Wu turned to him, expressionless, unimpressed. He raised a single finger and ordered, "Shut up and wait." Jin Wu held his sister tightly, whispering, "You're safe now. I'm sorry I was late."
Brother.
His voice was soft, but the rage simmering beneath it was undeniable. He turned to the other students. "Are you all okay?" They nodded quickly, still in awe of what had just happened. He looked at Jinah. "What about you?" She hesitated and replied, "Yes, I'm fine." But her eyes widened. She could feel it. A terrifying aura radiated from Jin Wu, one she had never sensed before. Jin Wu's gaze fell on his sister's face, and his expression darkened. A red mark stood out against her pale skin. Because that orc had grabbed her with his big hand and lifted her into the air, and at that moment he got very angry. The orc's filthy hand had left its imprint. The air around Jin Wu trembled. His voice was like ice when he called Igris. The Shadow Commander materialized instantly. Jin Wu didn't even look at him and ordered, "Take care of her." Igris nodded and gently escorted Jinah away. Jin Wu turned to his shadow soldiers and gave another order, "Get the students out of here." His warriors guided the terrified students outside. The orcs trembled. They had never felt a presence like this before. The orc leader, unable to hold back, stepped forward. You were controlling those warriors?" Jin Wu didn't respond. He didn't have to. The orc swallowed hard as he looked into the eyes of the hunter before him. This wasn't a man. This was a monster, an apex predator. The orcs charged. Jin Wu didn't move. He waited. As the first orc swung his axe, Jin Wu caught it, with just his fingers. The orc's scream filled the air. His fingers snapped like twigs. He grabbed him by his fingers, and he started screaming at the top of his voice in incredible pain. Not even a few seconds later, that orc was already slumped on the ground and finished him off with a single kick of his foot. The remaining two orcs ran toward to attack. Jin Wu raised his hand, using the ruler's hand. He froze the orcs in midair. When he squeezed his hand, both orcs turned into a pile of meat. After that, the entire pack of orcs that were in the room started screaming furiously and running towards the hunter, but he didn't want to just stand there and wait, so he used his bare hands to pierce through their bodies, and in a few seconds they were all down. Only their leader remained, who stood in the corner and shook, for he did not understand how this was possible. Before he could react, a hand clamped down on his head. Jin Wu shoved Groktaru against the wall. His grip tightened, noticing that the corridor where the orc came from had a lot of students lying on the ground and bleeding. He turned the other way and saw the same thing from another corridor and asked in a low and cold voice, "Why?" Groktaru gasped, trying to find the words. "I heard a voice telling me to kill humans." Jin Wu leaned in closer. "And me?" His grip tightened. "Do you want to kill me too?" Groktaru shook his head violently. "No, please, spare me!" Tears streamed down the orc's face. Jin Wu stared. To them, he wasn't human. A blade formed in his other hand. His voice was a whisper. "It doesn't matter anymore." He loosened his grip slightly. "I'll let you live." Groktaru's eyes lit up with hope. However, Jin Wu's blade rose. "Don't think it will be painless." Elsewhere, inside the massive gate, hunters from the Night Guild fought desperately. One of the healers yanked at an ant's mandibles. "Do you even know how much this is worth?" The massive ant ignored her. It continued devouring monsters. She pulled too hard. The ant accidentally struck her. She stumbled back, holding her arm. Then a shadow loomed over her. "Baru!" The ant general stepped forward and extended his massive claw. A soft glow surrounded her wound. In 1 second, it was gone. She stared in shock. This is healing magic. How? How was a summon better at healing than me? The hunters pressed forward. At the end of the corridor, a door slowly opened, and behind it, a nightmare awaited. The Arch-Lich. A collective gasp filled the room. One hunter whispered in terror, "An Arch-Lich?" An Arch-Lich wiped out one of the major Chinese guilds, the Gold Dragon Guild, and caused a dungeon break. A disastrous outcome was avoided thanks to Liu Zhugang. Our assault team is no match for a boss this strong. But it was too late. The dead that hadn't been eaten by the ants came back to life. The undead army approached. The hunter leader screamed. "Close the doors." A mage hunter activated her sacred defense. "I can hold them for 5 minutes." The leader gritted his teeth. 5 minutes wasn't enough. Then a roar echoed through the room. The leader turned. Baru, the ant general, marched toward the Arch-Lich. The undead boss sneered. "This is impossible. Why is the monarch's personal army fighting us?" Baru laughed.
We were chosen by the king, and you were not.
The Arch-Lich froze. "No, that's impossible. I must tell the monarch." Baru disappeared. A second later, the Arch-Lich flew across the dungeon. Baru watched him crumble. Mockingly, he said,
You sure have a lot to say for someone who's about to die.
With a devastating blow, the Arch-Lich was sent flying to the side. At that moment, Baru lunged forward, tearing out the dungeon boss's heart with ease, his immense strength allowing him to crush it instantly. As the heart was destroyed, all of the Arch-Lich's subordinates collapsed to the ground, their existence no longer sustained by dark energy. The observing hunters were in awe. Baru had single-handedly eliminated both the dungeon boss and the undead army in a single strike. The raid leader, who had known the ant general was powerful, was now overwhelmed by the realization of just how formidable he truly was. Another hunter approached the leader and remarked that, with such an immensely strong shadow soldier, Hunter Jin Wu hardly needed to intervene at all. His army alone was capable of sweeping through any dungeon with minimal effort. If one considered it carefully, Jin Wu didn't even need to expend all his mana to summon his soldiers. Only half was sufficient, based on the results of this battle. Suddenly, one of the hunters suggested to the raid leader that they should abandon their original alliance plans and instead join Hunter Jin Woo's guild. The leader, taken aback, responded that the very idea was outrageous. He didn't even know what to say. Merging with another guild, especially one founded by a top-tier hunter like Jin Wu, was no small matter. The Knights Guild was among the top 5 guilds in the country, and forming such an alliance would have significant implications. The other hunter quickly clarified that he was joking. He knew such a merger was unlikely, especially given Jin Wu's overwhelming strength. The leader, however, was not amused. He sternly reminded his comrade that even as an S-rank hunter, Jin Wu was still subject to the law. The comrade apologized, but the leader pressed on, emphasizing that while Jin Wu's soldiers could clear entire dungeons, standard raid rules still applied. Hunters were required to form parties, and everyone had to abide by those regulations. Yet, despite the rules, his comrade proposed an alternative. Instead of merging, they could provide Jin Wu with hunters and allow him to empower them with his strength, creating a mutually beneficial arrangement. The leader found himself considering the idea. If they positioned it as support rather than a merger, they could maintain appearances while still working alongside Jin Wu. Meanwhile, outside, heavy rain poured down as concerned parents gathered near the school entrance, desperate to check on their children. Some wept for those who had been carried out on stretchers. At that moment, Hunter Jin Wu was in a car with the president of the Hunters Association. The president informed him that of the 213 students who had initially escaped the school, all were now safe. An additional 10 students had been successfully rescued, but had others reacted sooner, more lives might have been spared. Handing his phone to Jin Wu, the president revealed alarming statistics. Over the past 6 months, the number of dungeon appearances in Seoul had increased dramatically. More concerning, this surge was not limited to Korea. It was a global phenomenon. The number of newly awakened individuals was also rising, suggesting that some unknown system was attempting to maintain a balance. Jin Wu pondered the implications, realizing that the world itself was undergoing a transformation. The president continued, listing countries: Japan, America, China, France, England, Germany, and even regions of Central Asia, all of whom had expressed interest in making official contact with Jin Wu. Many had likely done so unofficially already. He admitted that while the association had no authority to prevent these interactions, they had done their best to protect Jin Wu's information. However, he feared that if Jin Wu chose to leave South Korea under the current circumstances, adapting abroad would be a challenge. When they arrived at the hospital where Jin Wu's sister was being treated, the president made one final plea. "We will do everything we can to support you. So, will you please stay in South Korea?" He continued, stating that there were officially 10 registered S-rank hunters in Korea, yet 3 had already been lost. 2 had died at the hands of monsters, while 1 had left for America. The country could no longer afford to stand idly by. The president urged Jin Wu to play a role in shaping their fate. At the end of their discussion, the president asked Jin Wu directly, "What is it that you ultimately want?" Jin Wu's response was clear. "Then, will you allow me to enter high-ranking dungeons alone in the future?" The president hesitated. "If I understand correctly, you want me to lift the restriction on the minimum number of hunters required for a raid?" "That's correct," Jin Wu affirmed. The president explained that the rule was established to minimize casualties as every hunter risked their life during a raid. But as he considered Jin Wu's capabilities, he realized the true reason behind the guild's formation. Jin Wu intended to clear dungeons by himself. Recognizing Jin Wu's unparalleled strength, the president acknowledged the challenge of granting such an exception. "It's difficult," he admitted, "but not impossible. I will do my best." Meanwhile, a journalist had just finished a successful report when her phone rang. It was her brother. He urged her to leave their father's guild division and join his own guild instead. Confused by the sudden offer, she asked if he was serious. Did he even know that Jin Hui was returning to Korea? Jin Ho responded confidently. Of course, he knew. After all, she was his own sister. However, his primary concern was filling the final slot needed to officially register their guild. She hesitated. "You're trying to recruit me into a guild that isn't even registered yet? Are you sure you're not being scammed by some shady guy?" Jin Ho chuckled. "If you knew who this shady guy was, you'd be very surprised." A short while later, Jin Wu stood with a mildly surprised expression as Jin Ho introduced him to his cousin, Yu Su-hyun, an A-rank hunter. As she removed her mask, recognition dawned in her eyes. "You're Hunter Jin Wu?" she asked, astonished. Jin Ho grinned. "Why are you so surprised? You're a celebrity yourself." Jin Wu, however, found himself pondering something else entirely. Jin Ho was a D-rank hunter, yet his sister was an A-rank. Could awakened abilities be inherited genetically? He had heard of cases among siblings before. Moreover, their father had also been a hunter. Turning to Yu Su-hyun, he asked, "Has Jin Ho already explained the details to you?" "He has," she confirmed. "You need one more member to form a guild." Jin Wu nodded. "Are you sure about this? You could attract a lot of public attention." She simply smiled. "That's fine. It's still better than being associated with my brother, Yu Jin-sung, and his infamous temper." Suddenly, she had a request. "Would you mind taking a picture with me? I'd like to post it on social media." Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association, discussions were heating up. Concerns arose over the implications of Jin Wu's shadow soldiers. Some members believed it was unfair for Jin Wu to be granted such privileges, arguing that the association had always upheld fairness and integrity. One member demanded an explanation from the president. The president acknowledged their concerns but countered with a simple question. "If monsters were to emerge from a dungeon, who would you send first? A group of 20 hunters, or one hunter Jin Wu?" Silence fell over the room. The president continued by asking, Didn't member Nam Ju-wook recently move to an apartment near the Hunters Guild, even though it is several times more expensive than where he was previously living? When questioned about the decision, he replied that it was not related to this. The association president highlighted that he had done this for his safety. If ordinary citizens had the means, wouldn't they choose to live in the safest places as well? Right now, guilds worldwide are trying to recruit Hunter Jin Wu. Do you really think he'll choose to stay in Korea without a good reason? He posed one final question. Do you want a repeat of what happened with Hwang Dong-soo fleeing to America? If you believe this privilege is unfair, I hope you all remember who will save your lives when an S-rank gate opens in Korea. Meanwhile, Huntress Chae scrolled through social media and saw Yoo Soo-hyun's post announcing her first day in Ahjin Guild. Shock and fury overtook her. Her entire aura flared with rage, shaking her surroundings. The next day, Hunter Jin Wu and his partner, Jin-ho, stood near the gate. Jin-ho, in awe, remarked that he had never seen a gate this massive before. Jin-woo, however, thought to himself that if Jin-ho had witnessed the colossal gate in Busan, he would have likely fainted on the spot, as that gate was significantly larger. A large crowd of reporters had gathered near the gate, bombarding Jin-woo with questions. They called out for his attention, asking about his impressions of the Ahjin Guild's first raid, the reasoning behind its name, and his relationship with the third founder, Yoo Soo-hyun. Before Jin-woo could respond, members of the Hunter Association stepped in to shield him from the media frenzy. Jin-woo turned to them and inquired how such a large crowd had formed. The association members explained that while they had taken measures to keep details confidential, the media had nevertheless managed to uncover the dungeon's location. They advised Jin-woo to be more cautious with his social media activity, as a single post had inadvertently led to the exposure of this site. Meanwhile, Jin-ho expressed concern about the logistics of crystal mining, pointing out that we couldn't handle the task of such a big gate. Jin-woo reassured him that there was no need to worry. His shadow soldiers would take care of it. Woo Jin-chul approached the shadow soldiers and measured their energy levels. He was taken aback by their high rankings, recognizing them as ideal for dungeon clearing. Observing their overwhelming strength, he concluded that those who had doubted the chairman's decision were clearly mistaken. With the inspection complete, the official removed his suit and donned armor, explaining,
"I've been ordered by the chairman to observe your raid. He wants to know if this really is a safe idea."
He then asked Jin-woo if he minded his presence. Jin-woo, unfazed, responded, "Are you sure about this?" Shortly after, they entered the dungeon. The association official watched in astonishment as the shadow soldiers effortlessly annihilated the A-ranked monsters. The soldiers moved with ruthless efficiency, giving the creatures no time to react. The official, recognizing the strength of these monsters, knew that even experienced hunters struggled against them. However, Jin-woo's forces dispatched them with ease. His attention shifted to Commander Igris, whose combat skills stood out. Wielding a newly acquired sword, Igris unleashed a barrage of lightning-fast attacks. For an ordinary hunter, such rapid strikes would require immense magical ability, yet Igris executed them effortlessly. Each swing of his sword sent powerful electric surges that obliterated everything in his path. The official admitted to himself that even in a one-on-one fight, he might not stand a chance against Igris. Meanwhile, Jin-woo noticed one of his ant soldiers devouring a monster. Annoyed, he kicked the ant, sending it crashing into the wall. He reprimanded it, reminding his soldiers that the monsters were incredibly valuable and not to be wasted. Turning to his other shadow soldiers, he orders them to begin mining magic crystals immediately. The Hunter Association official was astounded. This man wasn't just clearing dungeons, he was simultaneously collecting corpses and gathering mana crystals. This was no ordinary hunter operation. This was a full-scale, high-efficiency assault led by a single individual. He now understood why the chairman had insisted on him accompanying the raid. Suddenly, the dungeon boss appeared before them. Without hesitation, Jin-woo dismissed all his warriors except those assigned to mining. The official was perplexed.
"Why did you have the other soldiers go away?" Your summons are strong enough to take down the boss themselves.
Jin Wu summoned his blade and responded that if he relied too much on his shadow warriors, his own skills would deteriorate. Without warning, he dashed forward with incredible speed. Before the official could process what was happening, Jin Wu had already defeated the dungeon boss. A system notification confirmed the boss's defeat. As a result, Jin Wu's level increased to 101. His specialization improved, and his shadow summoning skill, Guardian of Shadows, the domain of a monarch, also advanced. The rollback time for his shadow swap ability had now been reduced from 3 hours to 2. Gaining an extra hour per level, he realized that at this rate, he would soon have the ability to reach his mother and sister instantaneously. The association official, still in shock, examined the boss's corpse. It possessed extraordinarily tough scales, making it a formidable defense while also serving as a deadly weapon. Yet, Jin Wu had sliced through it effortlessly with mere daggers. His astonishment grew as he watched Jin Wu activate his skill, extracting the boss's shadow. The shadow extraction was successful, and the newly created soldier emerged at an initial level of 13. Jin Wu analyzed it closely. It resembled his shadow mage, Fangs, both in physical form and magic energy. However, it was noticeably smaller, which was unusual, as shadows typically retained their size. Despite this, the energy radiating from it was immense. Jin Wu speculated that, like Fangs, this new soldier could potentially grow in size. Deciding on a name, he christened it Jinah. Jinho, observing from the sidelines, was not surprised. He had come to expect nothing less from Jin Wu, whose ability to transform powerful monsters into shadow soldiers never failed to impress. However, their moment of triumph was cut short. The dungeon suddenly began to collapse. Realizing they had to exit before the gate closed, the team hurried to escape. As they emerged, the gathered reporters gasped at the sight of a towering orc carrying an enormous monster on its shoulder. Mistaking it for an escaped creature, the reporters panicked, shouting for everyone to run. But within moments, they realized it was merely one of Jin Wu's shadow soldiers. Stunned by the sheer scale of Jin Wu's accomplishment, they quickly began snapping photos of the massive orc. The creature, initially confused by the attention, eventually smiled and scratched its head. Jinho, standing beside Jin Wu, noted that there were even more reporters now than before. The public reaction to their guild's first raid was overwhelming. Much to Jin Wu's dismay, he had not intended to attract this level of attention. Meanwhile, Wu Jinchul, still breathless from what he had witnessed, met with the president of the association.
And that's what happened.
The president inquired about his impressions, noting that, as a veteran, the official had surely seen many raids before. The official, still processing everything, responded,
What I witnessed wasn't a raid. It was a massacre.
The president, now fully understanding the gravity of the situation, dismissed the official, allowing him to rest. Left alone, he gazed out of his window, deep in thought. Jin Wu had not only cleared a high-rank dungeon, but had also harvested resources and strengthened his army, all on his own. To call him a one-man raid team was an understatement. Jin Wu was not just a hunter. Jin Wu was an entire guild unto himself. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Japan, an ominous event was unfolding. A colossal red gate had appeared, stretching across the sky, dwarfing even the tallest buildings. Crowds gathered in shock, staring in disbelief at the sheer magnitude of the phenomenon. The world was changing, and something enormous was about to happen.